Welcome to Creepy, the best horror storyteller on YouTube.
Samantha and Mark were ecstatic when they finally found their dream apartment in the city. It was a beautiful building with a spacious layout, large windows, and a stunning view of the skyline. They couldn't believe their luck when they managed to snag the last available unit. The excitement quickly dimmed when they met their neighbors. There was Mrs. Jenkins, a gaunt woman with eyes that seemed to pierce through you, and Mr. Smith, a man with a perpetually nervous twitch and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. The other residents were an odd assortment too, a reclusive artist with a passion for taxidermy, a perpetually giggling pair of twins, and a gruff ex-military man who kept to himself. The strangeness started subtly. A blood-curdling scream in the dead of night, quickly followed by an unsettling silence. A foul odor emanating from the garbage chute that lingered for days. Samantha found a stray cat, its fur matted and lifeless, outside their door. Mark, ever the optimist, brushed it off as city living, but Samantha couldn't shake the feeling of unease that crept in. One rainy afternoon, Samantha noticed Mrs. Jenkins sharpening a collection of gleaming knives in her kitchen, the rhythmic scrape against the whetstone sending shivers down her spine. Later that night, she saw Mr. Smith lumbering out of his apartment, a heavy black garbage bag clutched in his hand, disappearing into the storm with a nervous glance around. The paranoia gnawed at her. She confided in Mark, but he dismissed it, saying it was just city nerves. Determined to find an explanation, Samantha started digging. She spent days scouring the internet, piecing together fragments of information. Then, one evening, while rummaging through the recycling bin, a crumpled newspaper caught her eye. A headline screamed, "Serial Killer on the Loose, Butcher of Elm Street." Her heart hammered in her chest as she devoured the article. The killer's signature, a ritualistic sharpening of knives before each strike. Panic gnawed at her. She remembered Mrs. Jenkins, the glint of the steel reflecting in her cold eyes. A frantic search through public records confirmed her worst fear: every single one of their neighbors had a criminal record. And not just any crime, a murder. Suddenly, their home felt like a cage. Fear choked her as she realized they were living amongst monsters. Mark wouldn't believe her, convinced she was losing it. But Samantha knew she had to act. Fear lent her courage. She started collecting evidence. While Mark was at work, she snuck into their neighbors' apartments. Each one held a piece of the horrifying puzzle. Mrs. Jenkins had a hidden room, a macabre shrine filled with newspaper clippings detailing unsolved disappearances and gruesome trophies. Mr. Smith's apartment reeked of something foul, and a large, top-covered object sat ominously in the corner. The most chilling discovery came later. Sneaking into the basement, Samantha stumbled upon a hidden room, its entrance concealed behind a loose brick. Inside, a flickering light revealed a horrifying truth. Files on every tenant, meticulous notes, and a chilling video recording of Mr. Peterson, the unassuming landlord, outlining their plan. It was a terrifying revelation. He lured unsuspecting tenants in, and his charming residents were the executioners. With trembling hands, Samantha dialed the police. But her frantic pleas were met with skepticism. A lone woman reporting a conspiracy of murderers in her apartment building? They dismissed her as delusional. Now, completely alone, Samantha knew she had to save herself and Mark. Panic fueled her. She devised a plan. She left a trail of clues for Mark: a hidden note, a strategically placed article about missing persons, a recording of Mr. Peterson's confession she managed to copy from the basement. That night, as the city slept, a chilling scream ripped through the silence. It came from Mrs. Jenkins' apartment. Samantha peeked through the peephole. Mark, his face etched with terror, stood in the hallway, a blood-stained knife dangling from his hand. He had seen the clues. They didn't waste time with explanations. Grabbing a fire escape, They scrambled down, adrenaline pumping. They didn't dare look back as they raced through the deserted streets, the city lights blurring into streaks of fear. The news the next day sent shockwaves through the city. Police raided the apartment building, unearthing a horrifying scene. The charming residents were all apprehended, their true nature exposed. Samantha and Mark, safe but forever scarred, were hailed as heroes. They left the city behind, seeking solace in a quiet, anonymous town. The nightmares lingered, the chilling memories a constant reminder of the horror they escaped. But they had each other, and the strength of their shared experience. They rebuilt their lives, brick by agonizing brick. Years passed, the sharp edges of terror slowly dulling to a dull ache. Samantha and Mark married, a small, intimate ceremony with just a few close friends. They bought a charming old house with a creaky porch swing and a rambling garden. But the past had a way of creeping back. One evening, while unpacking boxes in the attic, Samantha stumbled upon a dusty photo album. A faded picture sent a jolt of ice through her veins. It was a picture of their old apartment building, a younger Mr. Peterson standing proudly in front, a group of smiling tenants flanking him. But there, amongst the smiling faces, was one that sent a fresh wave of terror crashing down, a younger version of their kind next-door neighbor from their new town, the one with the friendly smile and the perpetually nervous wave. Was it a coincidence? The world seemed a little smaller, a little less safe. Sleep became a battlefield of fragmented memories and chilling possibilities. Mark, sensing her growing unease, tried to reassure her. "It's just a picture, Sam. We're safe here." But Samantha couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every rustle of leaves in the wind, every creak of the old house, sent her heart pounding. She started noticing things, strange symbols etched on the back fence, a stray cat with matted, lifeless fur just like the one from their old building. One night, a power outage plunged the house into darkness. The silence was thick and suffocating. A sudden scratching sound came from the attic, sending shivers down her spine. Grabbing a flashlight, Samantha climbed the creaky stairs, Mark close behind. The attic was a labyrinth of shadows, dust motes swirling in the faint beam of light. As they reached the source of the sound, a horrifying tableau unfolded before them. Hidden amongst the cobwebs and forgotten furniture was a makeshift altar, adorned with disturbing symbols and trinkets. In the center lay a black bag, ominous and unmoving. Terror choked Samantha's scream. A gloved hand reached out from the shadows, a glint of steel catching the light. Mark lunged, a desperate struggle erupting in the darkness. The flashlight clattered to the floor, plunging them into complete blackness. The ensuing fight was a blur of adrenaline and fear. A strangled cry, a thud, and then silence. Trembling, Samantha fumbled for the fallen flashlight. The beam illuminated a horrifying scene. Mark lay motionless on the floor, a pool of crimson spreading beneath him. Standing over him, a figure cloaked in darkness, a chilling smile etched on their face. It was their friendly neighbor, his eyes gleaming with a familiar, predatory glint. "Hello, Samantha," he rasped, his voice sending a fresh wave of terror through her. "We've been expecting you." In that moment, Samantha knew the fight for survival had just begun. The nightmare wasn't over. It had just found a new address.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more similar horror stories.